On the line with me is Judson Phillips, an attorney and the founder of Tea Party Nation. You can find his editorials posted at Judson Phillips, PHILLIPS.com. The website, teapartynation.com. You can tweet him at Judson Phillips or at Tea Party Nation. Judson, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you with us. Now, I understand I don't know if you wrote this piece or somebody else, Liberal Donnie, this would be Donald Trump, and the death of the GOP. You want to lay out for us your premise?
Sure. And by the way, I was the author of that. No, it's Donald Trump is historically a liberal, and on my side of the fence, that's not a good thing. And he's been lying the whole time. And basically, if he wins the nomination, he is so toxic, he will totally destroy the GOP. He will take out a whole bunch of down-ticket races, congressmen, senators, even governors, state legislators, and it's just going to be a disaster for the Republican Party. And I think it'll be a disaster for America because I think we need two competitive parties offering competitive visions for America, particularly in 2016. I think the parties need to offer compelling, different visions for America, as opposed to, as Ben Sass said, having a Clinton-Trump race, which would just be a contest between two dishonest New York liberals.
Well, a Clinton-Trump race is I mean, there's actually going to be some really significant differences in policy there. Donald Trump is if he maintains some consistency on this, and I've read 3 articles now over the last 24 hours about his history on free trade. This is one of those issues where Donald Trump has been saying the same thing for about 20 years, that he's opposed to these so-called free trade deals, that he thought Ross Perot was right back in the day. I think Ross Perot is right, and he's going to be running on that. And if Hillary Clinton is not running on that, if she's running on a campaign of, well, the TTP isn't perfect as written, so let's tweak it a little bit, I think that Donald Trump is going to have a really substantial advantage in that kind of a race. That would help the Republican Party. Or are you concerned that the Republican Party should not be bashing free trade?
Well, first of all, let's start with the basics. I despise the term free trade because it is not free trade, at least not how we're using it in NAFTA, CAFTA, TPP, and all these other things. Free trade is what we have within these 50 states. There's no tax or tariffs. Products move freely back and forth.
Right.
And, this is one area that you and I are singing on the same sheet of music. This abomination they call the TPP is crony trade. It's designed to help the big dogs who were in the room when the treaty was written, and it's gonna hurt.
Right, and you know that, and I know that, and I think, and we know that in 1992, before any of these free trade deals had been passed, that, Ross Perot knew that, and he got 20% of the presidential vote. And I think now, here we are, 30 years later or thereabouts, and I think 80% of America now knows that. And I suspect that this is going to be the main issue that this election is going to turn on. And I don't see why you would worry about Donald Trump in that regard. And for that matter, because Ted Cruz is not talking about, taking down free trade agreements and going back to a tariff-based trade system. I don't, why would you support Cruz? He can't win without that.
Well, all right. First of all, just generally speaking, I think Cruz can win because he's been setting the campaign up correctly to win at the convention. But here's the real issue, and that is TPP is not registering on many people's radar. When you think of Donald Trump, what's the average person first think of? Oh, build that wall, send all those illegal aliens back. Well, guess what? Trump told the New York Times in this, quote, off-the-record interview, which is kind of leaked out a bit, that he's just saying things he needs to get the nomination, and you'll see the real Donald Trump after the nomination. Well, guess what? He flip-flops on all that.
Well, Judson, you don't know that he said that. You're speculating that he said that, and that's the reason why he won't release the transcripts of his conversations with the New York Times.
Well, that's a pretty compelling argument.
But see, his anti-immigration stuff, I mean, it started out as this racist thing about, they're sending their rapists and murderers over here. But the subtext of his anti-immigration stuff is very quickly now morphing into, you've got, 11, 13, whatever, million people in this country without documentation, and they're working for lower wages, and they're driving down wages for everybody else. And there's actually an element of truth to that. It's the strong argument for comprehensive immigration reform. Bring those people out of the shadows so that they start making minimum wage at the very least. and getting some benefits and whatnot, and that would stimulate the economy and everything else. But his answer is get rid of them, move them out of the country, which would also raise wages in the United States. It's a crazy way to do it, and it's inhumane and probably impossible. But still, he's talking about jobs. I don't hear Ted Cruz talking about that. I hear Ted Cruz talking about how Israel has to be made whole so that the fire can rain down on the country and the last 144,000 Jews can convert to Christianity and Jesus will return. I mean, that's the stuff that that's the Cruz campaign. I don't understand why you, as a good Tea Partier, think that that's cool.
All right. Well, my friend, I've been around the campaign. I have never heard Ted Cruz say that. I have heard Ted Cruz talk about jobs.
Listen to his father.
His father's not running. Look, Jimmy Carter had his crazy brother Billy. Okay, Billy wasn't president, and Rafael Cruz, who's a really nice guy, if you ever sit down and talk with him, is not going to be president. Ted Cruz will be president. So, but
Jimmy Carter didn't sit around drinking beer with Billy. In fact, Jimmy Carter was a teetotaler. Billy was an alcoholic. The elder Cruz is Rafael Cruz, and his son, who's also named Rafael Cruz, although we call him Ted. They're both singing the same song when it comes to religion, are they not?
No, they're both Baptist, and if you've ever been around the Baptist church, the Baptists have more different sets of beliefs than Baskin-Robbins has flavors of ice cream.
Yeah, and these guys, their particular flavor of belief is end-time millennialism.
His father is definitely into some of that. I've never heard Ted Cruz say anything about that.
I've seen the video of him being anointed to be the guy who's going to bring down Jesus. Haven't you? It's all over the internet.
Oh, I didn't see it. I was there in Nashville when it happened. He had the guy who had led his father to Christ some 40 years ago, and they put their hands on him and prayed over him. Within that particular group, within the Baptists and a lot of the
Judson, we've only got about a minute and a half left, and I don't want to end up cutting you off here. What is it about Ted Cruz that makes you support him and argue that the Tea Party should versus Donald Trump?
He's the only one out there who is talking about the Constitution and limiting government. I want government out of everybody's lives, as opposed to Donald Trump, who's basically a cronyist who thinks that the government is a tool that he can use.
Okay, so while Donald Trump says everybody should have access to health care and nobody in this country should be hungry, you're taking the position that if somebody isn't making enough money to buy food, screw them, they shouldn't get food stamps. And if somebody is sick and they don't have enough money to have health insurance or show up at the hospital, screw them, they should just die. Is that your position?
No, that's not my position, Tom. You know that. My position is the free market should solve these problems, not government.
Right. So if somebody is sick or if somebody's hungry, they should call up David Koch.
No, there are plenty of, what did we have before we had government health care? We had charities who helped people who could not
Actually, it was George Washington who signed the legislation to create the first poorhouse here in Washington, D.C., to provide housing, food, and medical care to poor people. George Washington.
And traditionally, who has taken the lead on this? It's been churches and other nonprofit entities.
No, actually, government has always provided more of these services in the United States than churches have.
I disagree with you there. That's why you have Baptist hospitals, Methodist hospitals, Presbyterian, Catholic.
Well, now the churches, in the last 40 years or so, particularly since the Reagan administration, the churches have figured out how to do this with government money. But it's still government money that's going through those churches for those programs, Judson. But we've gone far afield. Judson, it's always interesting talking with you. It's always nice talking with you. Thank you for being with us.
Hey, Tom, likewise. I really enjoy talking with you.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.